Shifter Diaries. The Seal of the Fated Mates. Prequel novella to the sweet paranormal wolf and fae fantasy romance series. By E. Hall. Copyright 2020 E. Hall. All rights reserved. 199 years ago. Chapter 1. At the commanding call of the birch bark wrapped lahorn, I reluctantly leave my moonlight bath filled with the fragrant leaves of jasmine and peony. At my delicate movement, only a faint ripple stirs the calm water. I step onto the carpet of leaves left over from the previous autumn. The forest is still, asleep except for nocturnal creatures and fae like me. I'm unsure what my punishment would be if my sisters discovered my regular visits to this bath on the edge of our territory. We're not supposed to venture so close to the borderland shared with humans. As far as I know, I'm the only one who would dare break this rule, so it has yet to be tested. The only guarantee is that the consequence would be severe. Likely, it would be far worse than binding me in iron, holding me captive, and forcing me to endure a long lecture. That's happened plenty of times. As the youngest, my fae sisters have made me clean up after them, and the meaner ones have forced me to do their unseelie dirty work, mostly pranking unsuspecting humans that pass through the woods. But I'd also argue that I'm the cleverest. Maybe even the most mischievous. It's not above me to leave spiders in their slippers or trade their favorite sweets left by superstitious humans for worms. I'm different than my 7 sisters, Jana, Visalia, Nilsa, Zella, Yura, Brea, and Dara. Mischievous and clever, but also curious, prone to wandering and exploring. Risky business for monsters like me. I walk swiftly to where my sisters, the fae maidens, gather for initiation. At any moment, Melchior will ride in on his chariot pulled by giant bullfrogs. I listen for the fanfare. It's a great honor for our king to bear witness to the initiations, and he never misses one, a reminder that it's only a matter of time before it's my turn. My skin chills. I close my eyes, wishing for a way out, a different life, anything except for the fate that awaits me. When I open my eyes, the fae in the clearing shimmer and then use glamour to blend into their surroundings. I slide into the group, undetected. The shiny hair of my sisters and their lovely gowns with beads and embroidery reminds me to remove my red cloak, revealing my own gown of slate blue and silver gems. The eldest in the group, though youthful in her beauty, Visalia, ceremonially brushes back the coal-colored hair of Dara, the fae maiden nearest her, and tonight's initiate among my sisters. Visalia's arms show the hint of jade swirls imprinted on her skin, a sign of her status as initiated. She lowers the comb and her eyes land on me. Her lips form a straight line of reproach. I tuck myself behind Jana and Nilsa. One by one, my fae maiden sisters will succumb to the initiation, binding us to King Melchior forever. On the first full moon of the year, Visalia initiated with the rest following, leaving only Dara, Jana, and me. They're all different now, more confident and less forgiving. I suppose that happens after fulfilling the destiny of the forest fae. Once more, I observe my maiden sisters gathered. They're innocent, lovely, and lithe with long, dark hair and skin like moonlight. I don't want to watch my sisters leave behind maidenhood, turn toward Melchior, and what I understand as a constant hunger. But not for food. A slight breeze wafts by, ruffling Dara's dark hair. The trumpeting of horns heralds Melchior's arrival. We bow our heads in his direction. The ethereal glow emanating from his skin draws my attention. His gray eyes swirl like clouds during a storm and contain the wisdom of the ages. His severe, otherworldly beauty intimidates me. I quickly look away. At a stinging nettle-like pinch of my arm, I whirl around. Jana, my twin, appears. "You are late," she whispers. "Hardly." "What were you doing, Isa?" she asks. Before I can answer, Brea shushes me with a flip of her sandy-colored hair. Moments later, Melchior pauses in front of us. He lifts his gilded scepter with the 3 prongs at the top. It's the symbol of his role as supreme king of the Fae and, as is the case right now, Stormmaker. Bound to Fae magic, he can influence the weather among other things. Clouds roll across the sky, hiding the moon. The wind whistles through the trees, rustling the leaves and branches. A chill pebbles across my skin. My maiden sisters swoon over Melchior and his power. They primp and preen, coo and fuss. Zella even sings a few bars of her favorite woodland song. They're all hoping he'll look upon them with favor. Each year, all the Fae ruled by Ken and Clover Court put on a pageant, slated to happen soon. A select few maidens will move into his private retinue of attendants, and one becomes queen for 100 years. Thankfully, I'm not the fairest Fae in the wood, nor do I have the best voice. Besides, as far as I know, the pageant is merely entertainment. Rumor has it that every 100 years Melchior picks his consort long before we take turns singing for him. Out of all the forest Fae, one not-so-lucky gal holds the privilege of becoming Melchior's bride. I'm not interested in remaining in his service for the next century. Fawning, seducing, and having Fae babies holds little appeal, they tend to bite. No thank you. I want something else, something more. I don't know what, but it's not what my sisters want, an arranged marriage to the Fae king. Even Visalia, whose expression only has 3 settings, prickly, angry, and snarky, bats her eyelashes at Melchior. He's every Fae's ideal mate. The only mate. So the stories go, in a tempestuous fit, he banished all the male Fae underground. This means he gets his pick of one Fae every 100 years. The notion of spending that long with him makes me squirm, not that I'd be selected. Melchior's gaze flashes to me. I tell myself it was the movement and not that he can read my thoughts. Fae have magic, but as far as I know, mind reading isn't one of them. However, at the moment, what's worse is the initiation that comes for me in 2 moon cycles. I wish to run, far, far away from my fate. We're supposed to avert our eyes in Melchior's presence, but feeling his gaze upon me, I peek at the muscular, bearded, and powerful ruler. Janice says he's dreamy. Being the total package is what you get when you're the king of the realm. Again, I'm the exception and take 0 interest. His lips quirk. His eyes momentarily flash obsidian as the clouds roll away, revealing the full moon in the night sky. My chest tightens with uneasiness. I tell myself he can't possibly know what I'm thinking. But maybe he can sense what I'm feeling. I desperately push away thoughts and emotions. The power of the moon, strengthening our initiate, will be a magnificent sight to behold, he says, surveying us. I look forward to witnessing each of you become initiated. We all bow and the uneasiness reaches my throat, threatening to cut off my breath. Melchior nods, indicating the initiation is to start. Dara, Visalia says, facing the Fae maiden to undergo initiation tonight. Are you ready? Yes, sister, Dara replies, calmly. Her violet eyes flick with anticipation. Let's go. The straight line of Visalia's lips lift as she glances toward the shadows of the woods. The wind gusts lightly as the distinct sound of a human's footsteps approaches. I pity the hunters who come out under a full moon, believing it somehow increases the likelihood of finding food or furs for their families. The locals think it's the best time to hunt because of a legend of these particular woods, because of the way the moon shines off the white bark of the birch trees. It's more like be hunted. For that matter, I pity anyone who dares to step into these woods, for their fate is as fixed as mine is. Melchior, your illustriousness, father of the Fae, we thank you for your gifts and grace. Then to us, Visalia adds stridently, sisters, watch closely the initiation under this bountiful moon, for it will be your turn soon. She nods in our direction in acknowledgement. We'll all take turns leading our sisters through the initiation after we have our turn. If only there was a way to avoid it. For tonight, it's too late. The air stills, and so do we. The only movement are the distant footsteps of the hunter approaching at a distance. The Fae have keen senses, especially at night. All eyes focus on the shadows down the tunnel-like path, bowed with the branches of birch trees. Their bark shines like a beacon in the night. Visalia's lips twitch. We come together to bear witness to Maiden Dara's coming-of-age ceremony. Tonight, she will join us in her ascension toward initiated into the Fae court. She'll proudly join her sisters who have come before her in service to our king. Dara has perfected the official cry of the forest Fae. It's a low and lamenting but beautiful and alluring song to human ears. The beginning sound hums in Dara's throat, which will draw the unsuspecting human toward her. Melchior continues, within this maiden so fair, the breath of the Fae will consume the breath of the human and she will gain his vitality, earning the honorable title, Lady Dara. My fellow Fae exchange flutters of wild excitement. I wring my hands together as nervousness slides through me. Melchior stands a head taller than us, observing carefully. Let it begin, he says. Chapter 2. As one, my sisters glide forward, moving easily over the uneven ground even in the dark. Melchior watches Dara with steely eyes. I turn away, imagining his intensity directed at me when it's my turn. I cringe. I drift toward the edge of the group, only half listening as Melchior begins a familiar tale. I want to run away until the speech is no longer audible. But I obediently remain. My fair Fae, the singular time a human took one of us was the last. A man stole our beloved Lila from her home, from us. She is now bound in eternal servitude, severed from the life she knew. There is no telling what she has suffered. Tonight, our victim comes as a sacrifice to Lila. His kind will suffer until they regret their crime. Until they bow to us. The hunters continue to scourge our woods. Their very presence threatens you. The hunters robbed and besmirched us, but we're not victims. We will take from them until what's ours is returned. Melchior's tone is a grave promise. A shiver of fear runs through me at the hatred behind the king's eyes. I slink back, wishing there was something I could do to stop this. Instead, a hand on my arm halts me. The grip is firm and before I turn, I know to whom it belongs. The fingers are strong, cold, and possessive. Again, I meet the dark orbs resting in Melchior's face, mirroring the surface of the sky, mirroring mine. His lips lift ever so slightly, followed by a single eyebrow as if to warn me not to be bold. I bow my head, shake my arm free, and retreat to the group. The hunter's footsteps grow steadier, closer, louder, almost in time to the panic in my heart. Even though voices carry in the woods, the Fae can cast magic over all the senses, making the king's speech inaudible to humans. We can also use magic to glamour ourselves or objects to be virtually invisible or change in appearance entirely. The king continues. And so the humans will remain in our debt, paying us with the potency of their breath. That which gives them life will offer us vitality. Maiden Dara, your sacrifice in the name of your Fae sister and to pledge your service to my court, awaits. He gestures toward the path. She fastens her red cloak and covers her hair with her hood. We all do, further concealing ourselves. I've never seen the world through a human's eyes, but their vision isn't as strong as Fae. I'm certain he doesn't see any of us until he's a mere step away. He's stocky and has a ruddy face. His fingers loosen around his bow, a result of the song Dara softly sang, luring him into a false sense of safety. Still concealed, except for Dara, the Fae form a tight ring blocking the path. Dara stands in the center with the king at her back. The iron-stained tip of his scepter shines red and fire-like in the moonlight. I long to be back in the small pool of placid water, admiring the moon and stars, and dreaming of a different future. Dara positions herself directly in front of the pleasantly startled hunter as her song continues. Her allure is impossible to resist. The woodsman's happy grin suggests he believes himself a lucky gent, having stumbled upon a fair maiden in the forestlands. The man's eyes widen with delight as she glides a slender finger along his pink cheek. He cannot release his attention from Dara's gaze as he takes in her smooth features and her softly glowing skin against her dark, flowing hair. He draws closer to her. He cannot resist. His heart beats rapidly against his chest along with my own, battering my ribs. I want to warn him, shout, anything, but if I interfere, my fate will be far worse than my imagined penalties for bathing on the edge of the woods by the light of the moon. Visalia and Yura remain in the shadows on either side of Dara. Descending by birth order, we form a ring, with me and Jana, the next in line for the initiation, closing the circle. The clouds fully clear, forming a wreath around the full moon, the light that activates the magic in the Fae song. I draw a breath deeply from the air, studying my sister and the way the man's face lights up at the sight of her beauty and the sustained notes of her song. I can't imagine going through with this. I don't want Jana to do it. She's my sister in the fullest sense, and after she goes through initiation, I have to follow. Although the Fae raise us collectively and we have neither a specific mother nor father, we have a twin, a companion, a sister who we come into this world with, to share our maidenhood years with. Jana knows all my secrets. I can't imagine coming of age as a lady, becoming more serious, retreating to a role in the king's court, and with the stain of initiation on my soul. My eyes flick to Dara and the enchanting song flowing from her lips. Visalia, the eldest among us, looks on approvingly. My heart skips when I think about her twin dying when she was young, an uncommon event in the Fae world. Her twin perished when a wolf shifter attacked her. Second to humans, they're our biggest enemy. The tragedy cast a shadow over Visalia, but it also strengthened her loyalty and commitment to moving on from maidenhood and into the king's service. The hunter's red cheeks lift. I imagine his human wife, scolding him for hunting at night. His children waking in the morning and wondering where he is. Although I've seen humans and learned their customs and culture, I've only been this close to a male human one other time. I was young, and Visalia was quick to reprimand me for my carelessness. One spring afternoon, a boy had been swimming in the stream that leads to the pool on the edge of the woods. I hid in the bushes. With each plunge underwater, I wanted to reach out and touch his hand, ask about life in the human world beyond our borders, and what made him laugh so fully as he splashed in the water. As a rule, Fae find very little funny. Unless pranks, raids, and torment count as a source of humor. I can't say that I'm innocent either. It's in our unseelie nature. But I don't want to purposely hurt or worse, kill someone. Soon, I'll have to. But I don't want to sing the Fae song, robbing the human of his life. I know that makes me different. Being cut out of the court and banished is worse than death, because we're immortal. The hunter's light blue eyes focus on Dara's and his head inclines toward hers, entranced. Her song draws a yearning from him as he leans closer still. The wrinkles lining his brow and around his mouth crinkle as she continues to sing. It's like something deep down warns him, but the cry of the Fae drowns out his inner voice. It would drown out my voice if I was brave enough to try to stop this. My stomach swims with confusion and unease. This isn't right. No lights flicker from the lonely nearby town, telling me no one sees the unfolding scene. A search party isn't on the way to stop this. I fight the urge to interrupt, breaking the trance of the Fae song. As if sensing my rebellion, Jana reaches for my hand. Visalia watches Dara with pride and approval as the deadly melody continues. She slowly makes her way around the circle to be sure we're all watching carefully. She pauses at Jana. "You're next," her gravelly voice is hardly a whisper. Then her eyes bore into me for a measure before she returns to Dara's side. The hypnotic song continues, the mythical words dancing off the maiden's tongue. The man, spellbound, sinks involuntarily toward Dara. His eyes flutter shut as her lips meet his. A ball of light leaves him, filling Dara and brightening her. And with that, he fades. Dara flashes a smile in triumph, her arms rise overhead, and she links hands with Visalia. "It is done," Melchior says. The Fae gathered wail with cruel delight, and the poor man, lost to this world, and all worlds forevermore, crumbles to the ground. I'd like to do the same. Chapter 3. I dread each day of the new lunar cycle, moving closer to the return of the full moon and my twins' initiation. I take every opportunity to explore the woods on my own, trying to find a way out. Of course, I could simply step beyond our borders, but then I would be cast away, banished forever. Would that be worse than taking the innocent life of a woodsman? One afternoon, I sit by the pool with my dress hiked up to my thighs and my legs in the water. Leaning back on my hands, I gaze at the lacy sunlight formed by the canopy of leaves above, pedaling my feet in the cool, clear liquid. A low hum escapes my lips, one of the woodland fae songs. For a moment, I almost feel peaceful. Then at the soft padding of boots over the earth, I fall silent. It's not especially common for a human to venture into this part of the woods. I imagine especially so after the latest hunter went missing. After Dara took his life, she dragged his body to the edge of the boundary with its rock walls and trim grass, leaving him as a warning for other humans to find. Some heed the stories of the Fae. Others leave out sweet treats as offerings for us to put them in our good graces, not that we have any. Still others, like the person approaching along the leaf-strewn path, dare to enter our land and risk what are sure to be rumors of our wrath. Using glamour, I blend into the rocks surrounding the pool of water. A young man with soft brown hair and smooth skin, wearing the typical outfit of a hunter with leather and furs, steps carefully toward the pool. I imagine he's on the lookout for creatures who'd like to make him lunch and not the likes of me, even though I am far more dangerous. My song is long since silent. Birds chirp as the water flowing over the trickles. His eyes skate over the rocks and then he freezes, tilting his head with curiosity. My own eyes widen. I left my red cloak strewn on a boulder. Visalia would scold me until I was blue for being so careless. The huntsman looks around. Not seeing me, he bends over and picks up the cloak. Pinching the shoulders, he holds it open, then brings it to his nose, inhaling. A pleasant smile grows on his lips, but his eyes are sharp, watchful. My cloak is my most valuable possession. It's threaded with Fae magic and can conceal me, transport me, and guide me. It's Fae tradition that Melchior gives us each a cloak when we're born, and while wearing it, we're able to access our power. "Hello?" he calls. His voice is low, masculine, and almost makes me dizzy. He's definitely human, but I wonder if this is how they feel when they first hear the cry of the Fae, our deadly song? Then again, the magic only works under the full moon's light. My skin tingles as I watch the young man turn my cloak over in his hands. I'm practically trembling. His gaze lifts sharply. I worry my sisters are nearby, but I'd see them despite the glamour. I watch the rise and fall of his strong chest, the pulse in his veins, and the blink of his blue eyes. They're as cool and clear as the water in the pool. Dreamy eyes. Eyes I could get lost in. A gaze that is both kind and keenly aware. Nothing like Melchior's harsh, mercurial glances. With a quick sigh, the woodsman tucks my cloak under his arm and turns to leave. I can't let him leave with my cloak. Panic is like a hot wind inside me. Exiting my hiding place by the rocks, I hurry after him, trying to grab the edge of the cloak, but his strides are long, purposeful. He nears the edge of the woods. How will I get the cloak back? If I don't act now, it might be lost to me forever. Not to mention my sisters and the Fae King's punishments will be dreadful. A desperate idea stops me on the path. I sing a line from one of our harmless songs, throwing my voice so he can't tell where it's coming from. He halts, listening intently. I sing the second bar of music. He tilts his head and then starts to turn slowly. I'm a second too late, using my glamour. His eyes widen. He glimpsed me, but now all he sees are stands of white birch trees and underbrush lining the empty path. I blend in with my surroundings. His brow wrinkles as his attention turns to the calm pool. I imagine he's wondering if he's seeing things. South close to this devastatingly handsome human, I feel like I'm standing on the edge of the world, dropping off into a sky filled with fluffy clouds. My stomach floats like it's filled with them. He smells like wood smoke and mint. His eyes are more beautiful up close with threads of silver running through the blue. I'm drawn to him in ways I shouldn't be. It's like he has a pull on me instead of the other way around. Or maybe, in him, I see what's on the other side of the boundary, bravery, and the boldness I wished I possessed. Hello? He calls softly. He doesn't look around, but focuses on the place where I stand. By his expression, I'm certain he doesn't see me. But he stretches his hand out, splaying his fingers slightly like he's reaching for something. For me. Does he sense my presence? Still glamored, I lift my hand, hovering my fingers a measure away from his. It would be so easy to touch his hand. My breath catches in my throat. I want so badly to reveal myself. A raven caws, jarring me. Fae are ordinarily so steady and so silent. I can emerge from a pool of water with nary a ripple and pad through the woods undetected. However, the woodsman startles as well, and at that moment, our fingers collide. I lose my grip on my glamour. He gasps and a slow and small smile appear on his lips. Hello, he repeats, a statement and not a question this time. The tips of our fingers still touch. Hello, I whisper, hardly believing this is happening. I am entranced, captivated, spellbound by a mere human. By the awe shining in his eyes, he is too. Our fingers continue to meet, until our palms touch, our hands sealing together. I don't grab or grip, but stare. His hands are big, capable, and calloused compared to mine, which are slender, tapering to my delicate wrists. You're beautiful. The most beautiful girl I've ever seen. The words drop from his lips as though he has no choice in the matter. Even I, Faye, know that isn't a customary human greeting. And I'd like my cloak back, I reply, summoning courage. Or rather, fear at what the king and my sisters would do if I don't get it back. The young man's throat bobs with a swallow. I'm Alden, he says, passing the red cloak to me. Thank you, I say, and start to walk away, afraid that if I say more, I'll incite Melchior's rage and start a war even though I want to remain in Alden's presence for longer than 100 years. Something comes over me, and I am certain I could be with him the rest of the age. Wait, he calls. Longing and desire and whatever is different about me from my sisters, making it so I don't instantly want to end the woodsman's life, prompts me to pause and glance back. His lips part in awe. My pulse triples, then I say, I'm ISA, before vanishing into the woods. Chapter 4. I flit from one side of my bedchamber to the other, flicking my hair irritably. Fade dwellings like this one are constructed of sandstone with detailed swirls and carvings. Flowering vines grow along the top, dripping down along the walls. A soft carpet of velvety moss covers the floor. Nature fills all our spaces, energizing us and concealing our homes in the woods from trespassers. When I sense a shift in the breeze, I cross my arms in front of my chest, anticipating Visalia coming to escort me to Jana's initiation. She has hardly let me out of her sight since my encounter in the woods. I'm certain Melchior ordered her to watch over me, sensing my emotions are divided and drifting toward Alden. Ever since, the Fae have been under the close watch of the king's goblin guard. Rumor has it that someone sang in front of a human in broad daylight. I didn't tell anyone about meeting Alden, but my voice must have carried through the woods, landing on the wrong set of ears. Visalia must know that the Fae that broke the rule was me and alerted Melchior. She has it in for me. Either that or she's willing to do anything to land herself in the king's court. There are rules aplenty in this realm, and the big one is concealment. We've been taught that humans collectively would make our lives extremely unpleasant if they discovered and confirmed our existence. Of course, we're far more powerful, but the threat still exists. Guilt rushes through like a winter wind. Or maybe I'm reading into things. Nevertheless, it's like I'm under lockdown. All of that aside, I can't stop thinking of the handsome human. His eyes entranced me. His voice charmed me. His touch could have been my downfall had I remained in his presence a moment longer. Thinking about him makes me bubbly with excitement and feel alive in a way I rarely have with all the dread that fills my days as I near initiation. I'm dreading the next full moon. No, not dreading. Worse than dreading whatever that is. I've tried plotting an escape, a rebellion, anything to get out of it, but can I betray my sisters? My king? Have I already? I walked to the entryway of my chamber, anticipating a visitor, but I'm still alone. The lengthening shadows indicate the turn away from the sun and the rising of the moon. I gaze into a reflecting mirror at my deep cranberry red hair and slate blue eyes. My full cheeks and pink lips. Are they lips that can sing the cry of the fae? Take a man's life? What would it be like to talk to Alden again? I whisper his name, testing it on my tongue. What was that? Jana enters my room. I startle, jostling the reflecting mirror and sending it smashing to the floor. I drop to my knees, gathering up the pieces. It doesn't escape my notice that it's like they're the shards of life as I've known it, splintering apart. Jana waves her hand. The air glimmers with her magic. The mirror fuses together in the metal frame, all except the piece that I'm holding. Visalia is coming soon, she takes a deep breath. I'm ready. I swallow back the urge to tell her not to go through with it. To ask her to run away with me. My stomach knots as I anticipate Visalia and Dara summoning us at any moment. I should brush your hair, I repeat the words by rote, the customary activity of fae before the initiation. Jana goes to her chamber next door, and I follow. She lounges. Her eyes are cloudy, with the look that comes over fae as they prepare to sing the song under the moonlight. I take the comb and run it through her hair. Jana, I was thinking, the urge to flee crowds out every other thought I have, but I'm not sure how to speak safely, convincingly. She hums absently. Jana. Listen, please, I drift off, not sure what to say or how. But I fear that it's too late for her anyway. She's already lost, succumbed to the spell of the fae, and the promise of the king's court. I've never seen her like this. My insides twist, and I dart around the room with urgency, trying to come up with an alternative plan. What if you and I go on a little trip? An adventure like we used to talk about. I doubt there are parts of the woods that you haven't explored it yet. Her attention is distant, yet I worry she knows my secret. Well, secrets now that I have two. The first is that I do not want to go through with initiation. The second is Alden. She lifts her head, her eyes are distant, but not as far away as I want to be. The time has come. Tonight is my initiation. You're next, ISA. A smile spreads on her face as if she's been waiting for this her entire life. It was always a distant possibility, replaced with fantasies and whimsical plans that I'd dream up. All this time, I lumped Jana, my twin, in with me. I assumed she was as dead set against the sacrifice as I was. That was foolish. I know what you're thinking. But that was before. Those were the childish dreams of two young maidens entertaining each other. The fae would never let us leave, especially not after recent events. And why would we want to be banished from the court? I understand the truth now, ISA. This is what we have to do. It's our fate, a responsibility and an honor to uphold the legacy of the fae and our lost sister, Lila. Her voice is lifeless, droning, and repeating what Dara probably told her as they prepared for this night. It sends shivers down my spine. During the lunar cycle leading to initiation, the fae that went last leads the next maiden in lessons to prepare for initiation. In these last weeks, Jana been gone for hours at a time. When she'd return, her shoulders would droop with exhaustion, but she'd hold her chin lifted as if she balanced a heavy crown upon her head. A sigh escapes. I don't want this vacant version of my sister to be what becomes of me in a mere moon cycle. I don't want this for Jana either. Frustrated, I grip the piece of the broken mirror, letting the sharper edges dig into my skin. Jana. Come on. We have to go, I say. Go where? Visalia stands in the doorway. She flashes me a glare and gestures for Jana to follow her. I reach for my twin's hand, wanting to sweep her away, but instead of returning my grip, she gives my fingers a squeeze and lets go. She says, "It'll be your turn soon." Visalia turns to me. "I'll be back. Don't even think about going anywhere." But I want to go somewhere. Anywhere. Escape from the life of the Fae. As beautiful as we may be, with musical voices and a tempting gaze, we're also brutal and cruel, stealing the souls of woodsmen. The memory of brushing my fingers against Alden's, and then our palms touching fills my mind and body with warmth that I cannot ignore or let slip away. What would happen if I met him again? Chapter 5. After Visalia and Jana leave the bedchamber, I continue puzzling over an escape plan. I could flee the woods, but the only problem is my twin would always be able to find me. Our magic is connected. Even if I sought out some remote cave or decided to live with a herd of sheep, she'd still find me. Jana is suddenly enthusiastic about going through with the initiation and no longer the Fae I've always known and loved. I haven't met the initiated version of Jana yet, but I'm afraid to. Visalia returns shortly after and takes my arm in a firm grip. One more moon cycle and you're next. Soon we'll prepare and you'll be just as willing as Jana. I doubt that. My lips form a thin line. Her hand tightens and her eyes narrow. I know you have your own ideas, I say. Listen to me, whatever you've been thinking about is dangerous. You're part of a sisterhood and you will not put the rest of us in jeopardy, no matter what your silly fantasies are. The initiation is an honor and you ought to treat it as such, or suffer the consequences. My heart sinks deeper and deeper. I gaze out through my door, dreaming of a different life as Visalia returns and leads me along the leaf-strewn path. I missed my opportunity, not that I know where I could possibly go. There are other Fae courts, but they aren't likely to adopt a banished Fae from another court. A brisk wind passes by. I rub my arms. Moments later, the bullfrogs lead Melchior in his chariot. Visalia smooths her hair and her lips lift at his approach. The pageant is happening soon, she says vaguely, fluttering her eyelashes even though Melchior probably can't see her from this distance. She's desperate for him to select her. I wouldn't want her to be queen, but she's the most loyal and most likely. The maidens have been chattering about what it must be like to be at Melchior's side as consort. They speculate about duties and the lavish castle, jewels, and the honor of singing for him every night. No thanks. I expect Melchior to whisk by, but he pulls up short. His glance passes over Visalia and lands on me. His mouth quirks. I quickly bow my head. I can almost feel his lips form a smile. If I know anything about the king, it's that he doesn't smile often. How many more full moons until your initiation, I say? His voice is deep, commanding, but I can't put my finger on it before I reply. 1, sir, I answer. He grunts. Then soon. Very soon. I hold my breath until he urges the bullfrogs carry on. Only when the air is still again, do I look up. I'm not sure what to make of that strange interaction. Was it a warning? But there was something else in his tone. I try to shake off the scene, wondering if Visalia or my other sisters warned him about me, saying that I'm flighty, often late for my chores, impulsive, and that I tend to wander off. What would Melchior do? What are the punishments for poorly behaved Fae? It can't be any worse than my fate. As Visalia surveys me, Her lifted eyebrow suggests curiosity or possibly confusion in place of her typical disapproving gaze. She continues, beckoning me to follow her, but this time doesn't take me by the arm. I sense she was put off by the interaction with the Fae King. As if I'm somehow tainted or something else. But what? Why? We reach the gathering for the initiation. It goes much like last time with the speech, reminding us of our duty as Fae and exacting revenge for our lost sister, Lila. I slide as close as possible to Jana, but Visalia wedges herself between us, not letting me get next to my twin. Does she worry I'll try to wrench Jana away and make a run for it? It's crossed my mind. The sound of footsteps approach. We glamour ourselves and move closer together. It is time, Visalia and Dara say together. Jana steps forward. I hang back, keeping my head down, unable to watch, but then I have a horrible thought. What if it's Alden out hunting? Jana already sings the cry of the Fae. It's too late for the hunter who wandered into our midst. I peek and am disturbed by the fact that I'm thankful it isn't Alden. This man is tall, slim, and has olive skin, topped by dark facial hair. However, I can't watch this time. I don't want to see my sister, my twin, lost to me. I think of us younger, much younger, tangling up in the bramble, organizing snail races, exploring caves and abandoned human ruins. I brush my fingers over the dampness rising to my eyes. A hand tugs on mine and pulls me away. I glimpse the large hand of the Fae King. I say, his voice is low and gravely. I keep my eyes averted per custom, but my instinct is to look into his and ask him to stop this madness. Why should we require the soul of a hunter to live? I've searched for answers, but have come up empty. Sure, I've heard the story about Lila and whispers wind through the Fae community, but they're just fragments, much like my broken mirror. Do you not care to watch the initiation? Jana is your twin, Melchior says. He hasn't let go of me. Does he sense my urge to rebel? Jana's emerald eyes fog over as she sings, and the man's expression fades as he succumbs to her spell. Next time I talk to her, she'll be different, not the Jana that I always knew. Her song drifts through the woods and Melchior himself sways, as though hypnotized by it. His hand still holds me fast. She has a lovely voice. I happen to know you have a beautiful voice, unlike any other. His grip on my arm reminds me of the one he has on my future. A voice used to rob another of their indwelling light, taking their spirit to support their own. It's wrong. Words fill my chest and lift to my tongue. Do I dare speak my truth? Defiantly, I raise my eyes to meet the Fae King's gaze. I don't hide my glare or my insolence at the loss of my sister, but the words I wish to speak remain locked away under his authority. He brushes my hair behind my ear and then takes my chin in his hand. Is it change that you fear? His smile spreads wide now and his liquid eyes smolder, enchanting me. I turn my head and shake loose to release his hold and his stare. Without his hands on me, the enchantment lifts. The king isn't usually this familiar with maiden Fae. Why is his attention on me? Oh, right. Because I'm the one who wants to run away. Not everything has to change, he whispers like the two of us already share a secret. I order my brow not to furrow in confusion. With a quirk of his lips, he returns to the initiation, sparing a glance back in my direction. I hesitate, rubbing my chin and realizing Alden's touch did the opposite of repelling me. Chapter 6. Even though Jana looks the same, I no longer recognize my sister. When I reach out my hand to take hers, it seems she no longer sees me either. While she and the others go to celebrate with a big feast, dancing, and singing until dawn, I retreat to my chamber. Unable to rest, I flit around my room, uncomfortable with the distance now separating Jana and me. My heart breaks for my twin, for the hunter, and his family. I don't know what to do or where to go, but I can't stay here. I glide through the passageway, careful not to crunch across leaves or snap a twig. Merriment carries on the wind from the fake court where everyone revels. I may not have been able to say what was on my heart to the king, but my actions will say what my lips could not. I tighten my cloak around me, tugging my hood low. When I'm near the stream that leads to the pool on the edge of the forest, I slow down as thick mist hangs between the trees. Reality seizes me as I near my escape. What will happen if I step beyond our borders? It can't be any worse than the fear of what will happen to me if I follow through with the initiation. I survey my surroundings. Thick trees give way to several tree stumps dotting the borderland. Nature creeps out from the confines of the woods, our world blending with that of the humans. Low light flickers down a hill in the distance. I can do this. I must do this. Taking one brave step, I leave the woods and pass the stone wall. Not having created a plan, sudden nervousness at being out in the open, even with the concealment of my magic, makes me feel vulnerable and exposed. However, I don't go back. Rather, I hurry along. I should have had a plan, but waiting around trying to figure one out would have kept me in my place. Time would have passed, and I'd soon be in the same position as Jana. As I near a wooden cottage with low gables and glass windows, I glimpse the bright face of a young man like a lamp in the fog. He's seated at a table, his head dipped as he reads. For a moment, I feel potential and a buoyancy that I've never known. The gravity that pushed upon me from anticipating the initiation vanishes. It's Alden. Hello, I whisper. A fellow Fae could hear me, but he certainly can't. I want to go inside and warm myself by the fire blazing in the hearth. I long to talk to him. Fae laws halt me. We could never be, not as friends and definitely not as anything more. I close my eyes and his face fills my thoughts. I want to keep it there and never forget. His brown hair has a slight curl. His strong features suggest certainty and power, but not the kind that would force me or anyone else into servitude and bind me to kill hunters. When I blink open my eyes, he's focused on his book. I admire his long limbs and muscular arms. Leaning on the table, he cups his palm around the back of his neck. The memory of our hands touching fills me with the kind of hope I once shared with Jana, the way we get excited about all the plans we devise in our fantasies as princesses of the forest. What would it be like to be a princess in the human world? Alden's princess? The thought zips through me. The way he looked at me when we met and when he said that I'm beautiful still makes my heart swell. Fae are unusually beautiful, which is part of our magic, but our nature is so at odds with our appearance. I have never felt pretty or lovely, or anything close to beautiful, despite what Melchior said. In fact, under his gaze I felt ugly. With Alden, it was different. Alden turns slowly toward the window again as though he senses me or is wondering what is beyond the confines of the life outlined for him, a woodsman who's meant to marry a human, have a family, and spend his days hunting. Is love in his future? I frown because Fae don't typically experience love. We're taught it's the greatest human weakness. Rather we seek pleasure above all else. But what about Melchior and his queen? Do they love each other, or is it a duty, a role they each fill to rule our realm? These are things I'd talk to Jana about if I could. Instead, the passing moments tease me with wanting something I can't have. I reach my hand to the window and press my palm against the glass. Alden shifts in his chair. I start to flinch and move back, but he doesn't seem to see me. His forehead drops to the window and he gazes out. Then his palm presses the other side of the glass like the same longing fills him. This is too dangerous. But I dare to look into his eyes, safely on the other side of the glass. He says, "Hello?" I'm still certain he can't see me because of the glamour, but what if he could? What is the worst that could happen? I take a deep breath and drop the hood of my red cloak. Chapter 7. Alden's eyes widen. He gets up from the table with a clatter. The door to the cottage swoops open. "ISA?" he asks. I nod, stepping out from the shadows. He glances over my shoulder and into the night, looking in both directions. Are you okay? I nod again, almost afraid to speak even though my regular voice cannot harm him. Let's get inside. Please, come in, he says, gesturing me into the cottage. Can I get you something? A beverage? Some food? Without waiting for my response, he fills a cup with water, tears off a hunk of bread, and roots through the pantry. He pulls out the chair, indicating I sit. Before I do, he reaches for my cloak. My hand closes over his on my shoulder, shooting a jolt through me. I shake my head. He holds his hands up in surrender. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's important to me, I say. How do I explain my red hood connects me to my power and protects me without also revealing what I am? He smiles kindly and gestures for me to sit again. I lower opposite him at the table. I take a tentative bite of the bread. It's yeasty. I bite my lip. Do you have anything sweeter? I ask politely so I don't offend his hospitality. Faye can't stomach salt and prefer sweets. His lips quirk and he pulls out a jar of blueberry jam. It's so sweet and so delicious I have more than a serving before remembering my manners. Thank you. Amused, he dips his head and glances from my cloak to my eyes. Are you from? My mouth is full, but I know what he's going to say. I'm ready to defend myself if he tries to hurt me but don't get the sense that he will. What do you think I am? One of them, he says, carefully. One of who? I counter, tilting my head and wondering how much he knows. A fairy, he whispers as though the word has power. So he does know. I lengthen my spine. We prefer to be called Fae. And yes, I am. I swallow even though my mouth is empty. Unlike with Melchior, I can speak freely with Alden. All widens his eyes. I always knew the stories were real. Does that mean that in addition to fae, werewolves, vampires, and magic also exist? I nod slowly, tentatively. I've sensed your kind in the woods. Should I be afraid? I try to offer a reassuring smile. In the woods? Yes. Right now? No. I've never revealed my identity. Despite my comfort with Alden, I try my best not to show the nerves jittering around me. We learned humans take advantage of weakness, but I can't imagine Alden doing any such thing. No, I feel something else entirely in his presence. Warmth. Belonging. Certainty. The lantern on the table flickers and our eyes meet. He looks me over, and I do the same, as curious about him as he seems to be about me. Wow, we both say at the same time. This is your home? I ask. Sort of. It's a long story. What about you? Where do you live? The forest. Sadness threatens the corners of my eyes. I shouldn't be here, but I can't go back. It's too dangerous. For me. For you. For everyone. That means you're brave, he whispers, squeezing my hand as though he senses my meaning. You can stay here as long as you'd like. It's late. Would you like to sleep? We can talk more in the morning. Alden picks up the lantern and leads me to a room with a bed in the corner and frilly curtains. I sit down. Thank you. He lingers in the door as though weighing whether or not to leave. I look around, not sure what to make of the human space. A quilt sewn together in a patchwork of colors covers the bed. Atop the table rests a carved wooden box. Human objects are different. He chuckles and pulls out a pocket watch and lowers onto the bed. It gives slightly with the addition of his weight and we sink closer together. Our arms and outer thighs touch. Little bolts like lightning zap my skin, warming me. He shows me the watch. This was my father's. Where is he now? I don't know. He went out to hunt several months ago and never returned. My heart stops. No, I don't have a heart. I'm a monster. Visalia, I whisper. What was that? He asks. I look to the moonlight spilling onto the floor through the window. You're safe here, he says. You're not, I reply. He turns sharply toward me. It's a risk I'm willing to take, I say. They'll come looking for me. We can leave in the morning, he says as if understanding I'm on the run. His proximity makes my pulse quicken. I can't think about that now. Unable to contain my energy, I bounce, once, twice, 3 times on the bed, bigger each time, overtaken by the reality of my sudden freedom. With one look at Alden's gleeful, fearless smile, the mood shifts. I take his hands and we bounce until laughter spills from our bellies, tears from my eyes. The connection I feel to him is unlike anything I've ever fathomed. We collapse together, shoulder to shoulder, our laughter a trickle. I like the sound of that, he says with a smile in his voice. Then he bolts up, leans over, and his hands are on my feet. His fingers dance up my sides to the crook of my neck. He's tickling me until I'm giggling uncontrollably. You're ticklish, he says. I wiggle and then copy him, tickling him back. Soon our arms and legs are in a tangle, our laughter too. My hair is wild, my heart happy. Now I know your weakness, he teases. With my pulse pumping, a tiny thought tells me that my weakness and my strength formed when our fingers first touched in the woods. He is both to me. I flop back onto the bed. He joins me and we lie across the short side. I sigh. I want to know about your family. Start with this house. He tells me about how his father used to be a fisherman, but then they left the seashore for the forest. He describes his mother and sisters who live there with him in the small cottage by the woods. With his father gone, he's been left to look after them. They're out of town, visiting my aunt. I provide for them mostly with my mother pulling in odd jobs now and then. Guilt rocks through me. How about you? What are Fae families like? He asks. I tell him about my 7 sisters, the many other clusters of Fae maidens scattered through the woods both near and far, the court of Ken and Clover, and the king. His eyes widen as I spill almost all of my secrets, leaving out the part about the initiation and my growing feelings for this amazing human. I roll onto my side. We linger in each other's eyes. I see the depths of the ocean, the limitless sky, and infinite possibility. He smooths a lock of my hair. Is this real? Am I under a spell? I chuckle. No, you're not, but this is better because it's true. You're beautiful. Amazing. I'd be a liar if I denied that I've hardly stopped thinking about you since our meeting in the woods. I bury the notion of us like a treasure, hidden deep, and tell myself to forget about him, but as the seconds tick on the pocket watch, I cannot. His gaze hooks mine and lingers. I don't want tonight to end, he whispers. I wish it didn't have to. He glances at the window with the moon still high in the sky. Then let's see if morning will come or if we'll get more time together. We continue to talk through the night. I hear about his childhood, boat rides, villages, and travel in the land across the sea called England. Tell me about your father. He yawns. I don't have a father. I have a king. I take a deep breath and then a risk. I tell Alden about Lila and how she was taken from our forest and made to serve a human man. Now we avenge her loss every 100 years on the full moon. I leave out the part about unseelie pranks and how once initiated, Fae take the lives of humans to enhance their potency. Alden shudders. That's grisly. In other words, don't go in the woods when the moon is full? I nod. I'm next, and I can't bring myself to do it. So you're here? I tell him how I snuck away and don't want to go back, but how my twin will always be able to find me. He asks me questions, and I answer until he yawns again. "You're tired. Do you sleep?" he asks. "Of course, silly." I pretend to snore. He laughs and then laces his fingers in mine. "What will you dream about?" His voice drifts into my yearning. "You. I have a feeling I will dream of you," I whisper and wiggle closer to him. Alden smooths his hand down my cheek. His eyes capture mine. We lean in until our mouths meet. Chapter 8. I've never been kissed, but Alden's lips on mine are like taking a deep breath, a long exhale, and not needing to breathe at all. It's the sun and the moon, right now, and infinity. His fingers tangle in my hair, drawing me closer. I place a hand on his shoulder, feeling the warmth and density of him. This really is happening. I can hardly believe I'm kissing a human. One thing is for sure, I could never hurt him or anyone else. He's not the enemy. My own thoughts and doubts are. I silence them, giving fully into the quiet explosion of stars behind my eyes, in my heart, and everywhere as Alden's lips dance against mine. The kiss continues and deepens as we press together, holding each other like a promise never to let go. My cloak falls away because I'm certain I can trust him. But can I trust myself? When we part, we talk some more and then kiss again, filling every second we share until the moon slowly sets and the sky lightens toward dawn. Alden blinks a few times as we get up and move to the window. The yard is still in shadow. He looks me over with such softness, I forget what lies beyond the borders of his cottage and what will exist within my borders upon the next full moon. "You're real. It wasn't a dream," he says. I don't know if there's a word for what it feels like when something you've wanted for a long time, like a hope or a dream, happens. But that. I feel free. And in love. Is that possible after just a couple of meetings? That's a good way to be. "I'm going to go get some firewood and then we'll have breakfast at sunup," he says. I get my red cloak and wrap it around me against the early morning chill. My sisters are probably returning home after the revels at the King's Court. Will they have noticed my absence? Alden rustles outside and then there's a sharp yell followed by a howl. Without thinking, I rush out the door in the gray half-light. The last slivers of the full moon linger in the sky as the sun boldly lifts to take its place. Alden is by the woodpile with an axe hanging loosely in one hand and gripping his shoulder as blood darkens the leather of his jacket sleeve. "Go inside, I say." "Quick," Alden warns. A low growl comes from behind the woodpile. Yellow eyes flash as an enormous werewolf stalks toward me. I've only encountered one, but there's no mistaking the hunger in its gaze or the snarl on its lips. Magic explodes from my hands, blasting the wolf back. The beast sends the woodpile scattering as he hits it with a thud. I rush to Alden, who's crouched on the ground, wincing with pain from the bite. I examine the wound. The flesh is torn. The wolf's poison likely has already mixed with Alden's blood. Our eyes meet. "You know what's going to happen," he rasps. My heart craters. Of course, I know what's going to happen, but it crushes me that he knows what's coming too. He will experience untold pain as the grim shifter magic takes hold in his body. What's worse is that he was changed by a werewolf, cursing him. On the next full moon, he will shift and become a terror to all in his path. Go inside. I'll be right back. I want to weep for him, but must act fast to alleviate as much of the pain that's bound to overwhelm him as possible. I rush to the woods, risking my sisters or Melchior finding me. Hopefully, after the revels, they're all deep in sleep. Gathering as much meadowsweet and lady slipper as I can, I hurry back to the cottage. The fragrance should fill me with happiness like it normally does, but right now, I'm desperate to help the human who's won my heart. I make a compress with the flowers, imbuing it with as much of my magic as I dare so as to not overcome Alden's system, already crowded with the werewolf curse. I clean the wound and then dress it, all the while humming a soothing song. Stay with me, Alden, I say, not that he has a choice now that he's been made immortal. What I mean is I want the young man I spent the last hours with, sharing my entire heart and getting to know his, to remain here with me. Sadness rises and causes my jaw to tremble and my eyes to water. His eyes flutter as he drifts in and out of consciousness. I rest my head on his chest, humming and soothing him as best I can. I don't rightly know all the ways of the humans, but for the next 2 days, I remain at Alden's side, tending to the wound, cooling him with a washcloth on his forehead when the heat of the change intensifies, and sing softly when he mutters incoherently like he's going mad. I stick by him, pleading and whispering promises I'm not sure I'll be able to fulfill. I keep a watchful eye on the woods by day and an ear on them at night. I'm on edge, waiting for my sisters to come for me or for Alden to become the Fae's greatest enemy. On the 3rd day, his eyes flutter open. In them, I see recognition, relief. I say, "You stayed?" I wrap my arms around him. Of course. He tries to sit up, but I don't let go. For a moment, we're both safe in each other's arms. He breathes in my hair. "I love you," he whispers as though this moment is merely a continuation of the night that I showed up in his window. "I love you," I say, thankful he's still himself, the human I fell for, at least for now. I could stay here with him until he shifts. We could be together. A fae and a wolf. Would that be so bad? I've studied much about humans, including their alphabet, language, customs, and evils. But werewolves? They're deadly. Then again, I'm a monster too. Alden doesn't let me go, as if he's afraid that if his grip loosens, I'll disappear. I'm not going anywhere, I assure him, deciding on the spot. But a breeze bumps across my skin even though we're inside. I turn to the door and Visalia fills the entryway. Chapter 9. Dara and Jana stand behind Visalia, the oldest, who has taken command of our group of sisters. She simply says, "Isa, come. You don't belong here." Jana, my twin, must have led them to me. I'm about to protest when she lifts her hands and stuns me with blazing ribbons of fey magic as if she knew I wasn't going to come easily. My body is rigid and under Visalia's command. I can't even glance over my shoulder at Alden lying there helpless and in pain. I can't say goodbye. We move swiftly back to the woods. My body aches, and not just because it's under a spell. I yearn to return to the cottage and Alden, to hear his stories and see his smile. Once within our borders, Visalia says, "You have broken our rules." I want to ask if Melchior knows. "Our king insists you remain among us." She speaks with disgust as if she disagrees and prefer I be banished. Be that as it may, you will be preparing for the pageant and then your initiation with me. Typically, whoever most recently went through with the brutal practice of killing a huntsman passes on the teachings to the next sister in line. In this instance, that would be Jana. Visalia's hard eyes suggest she'd rather do anything than school me in how to approach Melchior, sing, and steal a soul, ending the lives of our victims. The feeling is mutual. I'd rather do anything than spend a minute with her or Melchior, for that matter. I couldn't care less about the pageant. I glance at Jana, talking closely with Dara. Her gaze lifts and then darts away as though she's ashamed for having revealed my location. Or does she disapprove of what I did? My shoulders drop. Have I traded in my relationship with my sister for a handsome human? When she doesn't acknowledge me, I recall that I lost her the night of her initiation. Isa, the pageant is this evening. Even though you have not gone through with the initiation, Melchior wants you ready, Visalia says as she leads me to a chamber in one of our common buildings. This is where you'll prepare. I want you to run through your song 3 times, perfectly. If you make a mistake, start over, from the beginning. Then we will discuss how you'll conduct yourself in Melchior's presence and polish your appearance. Understood? I nod as, once more, her magic wins its way around me, so I won't be able to leave even if I want to. After initiation, our fey magic grows in strength. I am no match for her. I sink to the ground. She sits outside the entry on a rock with her back to me. I circle the small chamber a few times, clear my throat, and begin to sing. My voice echoes beautifully, hauntingly off the walls. After the first time through, I pause, waiting to hear if she has anything to say. Silence. I begin again. In my mind, I hear Janet cheering me on, clapping, and congratulating me when I'd finally gotten my song right. She and I practiced and coached each other since the earliest days of our maidenhood. Singing made us feel free, like our voices touched the sky and carried beyond the forest. Then when we learned the cry of the fae and the true purpose of the song, I never wanted to sing again. But Jana encouraged me. She said it was a travesty not to share my voice with the stars. I begin the final delivery, willing my throat not to scratch so I don't have to repeat it. As the last note rings out, echoing in the room, this final version, I'm loath to admit, is perfection. I peer out, waiting for the next bit of instruction, wondering if Visalia will style my hair, but she isn't there. Maybe she was called away to help another maiden. I sit and wait. My mind drifts to Alden and the night we shared, filled with stories and laughter, and our kiss. Annoyed that I'm trapped here, I flick my hair a few times, imagining a life with him. However, after one misfortunate and cruel moment, it can never be. He was bitten by a wolf. Tears pierce the corners of my eyes at the sudden loss of the human I'd only just gotten to know. I think of Lila, our long-lost sister. She was the maiden selected at a pageant long ago to serve as Melchior's consort, but savagely robbed of her life among the fae, or was she? We'd been told her absence drove us to take the lives of huntsmen on the full moon, but what if she left of her own free will like I almost did? The last of the golden light of day filtering through the treetops disappears, leaving me alone in the now dark chamber. I rub my hands together, summoning my power. I use a spell, hoping to break the bonds Visalia used. The magic doesn't dissolve. Above my moan of frustration, the unmistakable melody of my sister's songs comes from the king's court. The pageant must have begun. That means they're all distracted. I have to find a way out before they realize I'm not there. But where will I go? Alden's image fills my mind. As a wolf, will he still love me? Can I love a wolf? I wish I could talk to Jana about this. She's indeed different now, and so am I, but that doesn't mean I don't love her. Then it hits me. I can still love Alden even if he shifts once a month. We could make it work. In contrast, I imagine a future tending to Melchior as he sits upon his throne. Dread washes through me, leaving me chilled all the way to my bones. As my sisters sing, I can picture them with gems and other shiny adornments threading the winding crowns of braids in their hair. Their faces are bright and their lips pink. I touch my fingers to my mouth. Visalia didn't help me prepare. Why not? My stomach sinks as Melchior enters my mind again, and the attention and interest he paid me along with Visalia's contempt. The way he looked at me and not at her. The jealousy that shot across her face, hardening her features. He must have chosen me before the fuss of the pageant. I'm so sickened by the revelation, so still and so silent. From a distance, I hear Jana say, "My king, I hope you will find my song worthy." The melody spills from her lips, with beauty and grace. This follows at least a dozen more times from various other fae of the forest. I wonder if Melchior gets tired of listening. After a court attendant has summoned every maiden to sing except me, Melchior's voice booms through the woods. Surely there is one more. Maybe for some reason, I'm exempt. No, Visalia didn't prepare me on purpose. Oh. Apologies, Your Majesty. Yes, Maiden Isa, please come before your king. Visalia's tone is tight, laced with annoyance, but if what I believe is true, she locked me up here, bound me with her magic, and knows I won't be able to appear, betraying the king. The strident call of the Lahorn blows. Visalia's magic loosens, and I have no choice but to follow the king's summons. Chapter 10. A sense of helplessness thickens in my throat as I approach my sisters. The king's lips peel into a hungry smile. There you are, maiden Isa. Shall I ask what kept you from our pageant? I glare at Visalia for imprisoning me. A flash of surprise betrays her guilt. The king's eyebrow arches sharply. I love a contest almost as much as I love a concert. He chuckles. Now that you're here, please sing for me, Isa, maiden most fair. At those 3 words, I know for sure that he wants me as his queen. I could sabotage myself and sing like an angry goat, but won't give Visalia the satisfaction of seeing me fail. I follow the same etiquette as the maidens before me. I pause in front of King Melchior and curtsy. I wait for the words that each of the maidens uttered, pledging their loyalty, but they won't form on my lips. I simply say, King. Closing my eyes, I sing, forgetting where I am and what I'm doing. Behind my lids, I picture fingers touching mine, then arms and lips. Alden fills my thoughts and I imagine singing for him, but not the cry of the Fae. No, a song of joy and triumph, love and truth. Then when my voice quiets, I crash back to reality. The beautiful and hopeful smiles of my sisters focus on Melchior. They're all wondering which one of us he'll call to his side as queen. I already know the answer. First, we feast. Nervous, I hardly touch the lavish spread, including sticky buns and sweet berries. Usually, those are my favorite. After the meal, Melchior blows his lahorn again. My fate is not my own. A deep male voice calls me. Maiden Isa, you are chosen. His smile is commanding, possessive. His eyes flash obsidian and train on me. A chill scrawls across my skin and I shudder. Maybe there's an alternate. A backup consort. Someone else he'd like to have serve him instead of me. But no. I'm well aware of the laws. I ascend to his throne built of stone and wound with ivy and gems made to resemble the most beautiful flowers in the forest. They're also the ones with the biggest thorns, and the sculpted throne includes them as well. He takes my hand and kisses it. I fight against revealing my disgust. The Fae court cheers. Well, everyone except Visalia. If only she knew I'd rather it be her up here. You will join me as queen after your initiation, Melchior says. I nod vaguely as my mind already hammers away with ways to avoid this future. I'm still holding on to hope that I can find a way to escape. In the coming weeks, I'm under close watch by the Goblin Guard, so I don't have a chance to wander off. I hardly have a moment alone. At night, ripples of magic appear outside my chamber, containing me inside. Every time my fears catch up to me, I look at the situation from a different angle. I can't run. I can't hide. And I can't stop thinking about Alden. This is a problem that I don't know how to fix. However, I need to take action. But what? How? I've already snuck to the Fae library, researching, trying to find a loophole, a way to avoid initiation, and becoming Melchior's consort. However, neither thinking nor doing has brought me any closer to figuring out how to change the way things are for my fellow Fae. As the moon grows bright, my hope fades. I miss Jana. We haven't spoken since the night of her initiation. I wish we could talk about our adventures, comb each other's hair, and sing together like we used to. Or run away together. That would work too. Under the guise of going to gather herbs and flowers, I sit by the crystalline pool, longing to leave the woods. I bite my lip, wondering what will happen. Visalia has warned me that I'll be stripped of my powers if I dare betray the Fae again. A cool breeze wafts by. I shiver as the sun disappears from the sky, sensing Jana is near. She whispers my name. Isa. It's me. The sound of her voice stirs something inside Fae don't talk about: tenderness, sweetness, fondness. Sisterhood. It's different than the love I have for Alden. My feelings for him are bigger, brighter, deeper. They burn inside me like embers, refusing to be extinguished. My future is uncertain, but I know one thing for sure. I will never love Melchior. I don't hate him either. My feelings for him are worse. Indifference. He will never draw any emotions from me. I will be a blank slate, bland, and betray nothing in his presence even if I am to spend eternity by his side. Jana appears from behind a tree. Your initiation is tonight. I look at the sky. In my preoccupation, I lost track of a day. I thought the full moon was tomorrow. I tremble, feeling the tug of the truth of what I'll become. At the sight of her silky hair, kind eyes, and half smile, doubt wiggles in. I want to live among my sisters, but not at the expense of so many innocent lives lost. In the distance, I hear a howl and think of Alden. At the peak of the full moon, it will also be his first time turning. I want him more than anything, including my fear. ISA, they're going to start looking for you. Melchior chose you. You are his, Jana says. I don't move. I don't even breathe. I don't belong to anyone. I've made my decision. I may have to take a life tonight, but my power will grow. I won't serve Melchior. I'll leave the forest, and I won't spare anyone who gets in my way. Chapter 11. Visalia styles my hair in elaborate braids woven with flowers and berries for initiation. She isn't gentle as she tugs and rips at my head, knotting them tight. Jana looks on, passive, silent. I won't succumb to whatever spell she's under. I wear a gown with gossamer and gold. As before, we gather in the woods. The king arrives on his chariot. There is fuss and fanfare, especially because I was selected as the next queen. Melchior kisses my hand after he gives his speech. My body freezes when I hear the distinct patter of boots along the path. The huntsman approaches. The Fae glamour themselves and lift the hoods on their cloaks for concealment. I leave mine down and fix my gaze forward. I want my victim to see the apology in my eyes. We gather on the path, leaving the hunter with no choice but to walk directly into our midst. As he nears, my heart lurches in my chest. The young man has brown hair and smooth skin. His blue-eyed gaze lands on mine and warms. Tears fill my eyes. His smile widens. He opens his arms at the same time as I open my mouth, singing the song, the cry of the Fae. I don't want to do it. But if I don't follow through with the initiation and kill Alden, I'll be banished for eternity. However, my plan is for freedom. I'll go through with it, gain power, and then escape. I'll find a way to atone for all the Fae have done wrong. Alden's eyes turn fuzzy and his mouth slackens as he begins to succumb to my song. My chest aches. My heart breaks. My grip on my determination softens, slackens. I can't do it. I can't take Alden's life. The words of the song trip from my lips, falling like autumn leaves. They splinter like dry branches. They no longer make sense. The Fae at my side shift, startled by the change in my tune. A surge of magic whips into my back. I turn, breaking the spell on Alden. Visalia hisses, "What do you think you're doing?" The king laughs. She's playing with her prey. Having a little fun before she finishes him. Aren't you, ISA? His stormy eyes tell a different story. He knows the truth, and he'll make Alden and me suffer for it. Melchior's gaze calms like the clouds parting overhead, revealing the full moon. Sing for us, ISA. Sing for your sisters, for Lila, for me. It's a command. Again, I open my mouth, and as I turn back to Alden, he staggers, then jerks. Pain streaks across his face, and he grits his teeth. What is Melchior doing to him? Sing, ISA, the king orders. But no sound comes out. The wood is silent and still as Alden, my Alden, shifts into a werewolf. He's a hulking mass of fur and muscle. His eyes are yellow, set in dark markings around his eyes, and blazing down his snout. He snarls, revealing sharp teeth. The Fae gasp in fear. Wolves are our biggest enemy and our only threat. But I'd rather this be the way I go than a life of service to the cruel Fae King. The wolf's yellow eyes drift to mine. I want to explain, apologize, and tell him everything so that when he shifts back to human form he'll understand. But my lips remain sealed. At my back, I sense the ripples of powerful Fae magic building. They're going to fight. They're going to hurt Alden. I close my eyes, drawing from the depths of my magic, drawing it up and into my chest, letting it build and strengthen. Melchior says, "Stand down, wolf. If you attack, this means war between our kind and yours." Then he adds, "Isa, sing. Sing now." I have no idea if the cry of the Fae works against wolves. I don't know if it's ever been tested, but I refuse to do it. I don't want war. I don't want to kill or hurt, but I will defend myself and Alden. The difference between werewolves and wolf shifters is the latter act with free will like the Fae. Werewolves, also called night owls, are cursed. Ironically, the most powerful Fae can break the curse, but few know how. If we survive this, I will figure out a way. Isa, do not defy your king, Melchior says, angling his scepter at Alden. The wolf growls, low and menacingly. A flash of magic blasts from the scepter at the same time Alden pounces, leaping past me and toward Visalia. Magic explodes from my sisters, the king, and me. Only, mine is directed at them. It blasts Jana, Dara, and Nilsa. Alden's powerful jaw closes around Visalia's wrist as magic hits his flank, sending him flying to the ground. He yelps, but immediately gets up. The air around us is thick with confusion and anger, but soon my sister Fae catch up and fight back. Magic flashes and crackles in the air. Zella goes limp for a moment and then meets my eyes, coils, and releases a great lash of magic that sends me reeling. As I get to my feet, I fire back, casting a wisp of blood-red magic. It curls around Yura as she bears down on me. She's momentarily suspended over the ground, but Visalia breaks my hold. Blood drips from her wrist and hand. Her gaze narrows in on me. Rage bleeds on her face, and she strikes me once, twice, 3 times. The pain is like hundreds of shards of glass piercing my skin. I don't want this. I want peace and love in my life. Freedom. Not fighting and not killing. I rush over to Alden, risking everything I've been taught about wolves and Fae. He gets to his feet and is as tall as me when on 4 legs. When in human form, he stands nearly a head taller. His gaze upon me is soft. "Do you recognize me?" I whisper. He nudges his muzzle toward his shoulder. I gape. "Do you want me to get on your back?" His eyes are wild, but he blinks slowly in acknowledgement. I do as he suggested and bury my fists into his fur as he takes off into the forest, with blasts of Fae magic surging toward us, illuminating the already full moon night. I tuck my head to avoid getting slapped by branches as Alden carries us to the edge of the forest. I don't think being in the open with villagers and humans is a good idea, but he races toward his cottage. Visalia knows where he lives, but instead of stopping, he keeps going, keeping to the edge of the road. Jana will find me. Wherever I am, she'll know. The troop of Fae rush from the woods after us. Melchior throws his magic in our direction, sending up clods of dirt where he misses. But they're close misses. My pulse pounds. My stomach sinks as my red cloak blows behind me like a target. We can't run forever. How will we escape? The truth stings when it hits me. We won't. I bury my face in Alden's fur and tears fall as he rushes through the night. Chapter 12. My brave wolf doesn't stop running until the sky starts to lighten and salt scents the air. We must be near the sea. The Fae are still in pursuit. They won't stop until they capture us or kill us. Alden stumbles. I try to hang on, but am thrown and land hard on my backside. As I get up, a strong hand grabs my arm. I wrench away, blasting blindly with magic. Jana's eyes widen and she stiffens, frozen by my spell. I'm sorry, I say as I take off running. But I don't see my wolf. Instead, a man lies on the ground, slowly pressing to all fours. Alden returned to human form. The sky is light. The moon must have set. I escape the initiation, but not the Fae. I remove my cloak and place it over Alden as he gets to his feet. I send a stripe of magic to hold them off as we hurry away again. In human form, he's not nearly as fast. Soon, the Fae descend. Magic blasts. Fists swipe and slap. Visalia grabs the red cloak, tearing off the hem. Its red fabric matches the blood spilling from her wound. Alden continues running, concealing himself with my cloak as we near the water. The small fishing village wakes to a new day and shopkeepers look alarmed as we weave through the streets. To the boats, Alden says. It's hopeless. They'll catch up. But I won't go down easily. The salt air gets stronger and the wind picks up, slowing me down along with the other Fae. Wolves are our only enemy in this supernatural world, but we have two weaknesses in the natural world, salt and iron. Do you know how to swim? Alden asks. Fae don't swim. As a rule, we avoid salt at all costs. Concern lines his brow as we breathe hard, running for our lives. All at once, he scoops me into his arms and rushes across a wooden dock, jutting into the sea. A large boat with 3 sails drifts away from land. Without slowing down, Alden leaps off the dock and onto the boat. We're both sent sprawling across the deck. On the shore, the Fae disappear behind glamour and from my life. At least for now. I wasn't the one who ran and took the leap, but can hardly catch my breath. A couple members of the ship's crew rush over to us. I have the instinct to glamour myself, but didn't think fast enough. Scars line Alden's shoulder where the wolf bit him and he pulls my cloak over himself to hide evidence of his new identity. Fae are renowned for spinning tales and performing tricks, speaking in half-truths and ambiguity. But as the crew demands an explanation, my mind draws a blank. How do we explain what just happened? Sirs, our sincerest apologies. My father, Belden Johansson, knew the captain of this ship. I am Alden and this is my wife, Isa. We were held up in town before I could make introductions to the captain and ask if we can make the passage with you. Do you have payment? A skinny human with beady eyes asks. Alden leans in so only I can hear. I don't have any money, given the circumstances of our departure. He gestures to his lack of clothing. Are you sure this is a good idea? What about your mother and sisters? I don't want him to abandon them. His shoulders drop. As the full moon neared, I left them a note explaining and all my coin in case I didn't return. I didn't want to put them in harm's way when I shifted. His eyes dip with sadness. It's then I realize he wandered into our midst, hoping we'd put an end to the terror he was sure to cause as a cursed wolf. I discreetly pull a few leaves that managed to stick to my gown during our escape and battle. I use glamour to make them look like gold coins. It's deceitful, but we've made it this far and I'll do what I have to do to keep us safe. The crew member's eyes widen. I produce another leaf coin and ask for clothing for Alden before he meets the captain. We move out of sight as the ship makes way. By the time we can no longer see land and are surrounded by more salt water than I want to think about, Alden has befriended the captain, gotten us a meal, and woven a tale of our recent marriage. Little bursts of excitement replace the fear of our departure. He calls our trip a honeymoon so we can travel, see the sights, and then visit family. I have no idea what's true or not other than the idea of marrying him fills me with excitement, desire, and warmth so complete I want it, whatever it is. We share a small bunk separate from the crew, but it is so dank and stuffy, Alden and I remain on the deck well into the night. In hushed whispers, we talk about how he shifted, and then we fled. I bit one of your sisters. He hangs his head. I'm sorry. Visalia. Of all of them, she's the one to avoid. She hates me. No one could hate you. I snort. He gasps. Wait. Could I have cursed her? Can Fae turn into werewolves? His eyes widen with fear. If bitten they turn, yes, but I've heard it's worse than a werewolf because we're already monsters. She'll become more like a demon on the full moon. Alden bristles. I don't want to think about it. Instead, tell me about boats, ocean crossings, and where we're headed. He tells me we're merely going across the sea to a place called England, where he's from. We'll arrive the next day. You said we're married, I say slowly, hopefully. The starlight catches in his eyes, and he explains what it means. Then it's like a seal between two mates, I say, using terms that aren't common to Fae but are to other magicals, like shifters. He nods knowingly. In this past month, I sought out other wolves and asked a lot of questions. Found out many things about my kind. He shakes his head slowly as if he hasn't quite come to terms with his new reality. I grew up hearing all kinds of tall tales. Turns out they're not so tall. The wolves told me there was no way I'd be able to deny my hunger when I turned into a night owl. A cursed wolf. I'm sorry, he says. Don't be. I'm the monster. I almost took your life. I'm the one who is sorry. Alden brushes his thumb across my jaw and to my lower lip. Our eyes meet. When I saw you in the woods, during your initiation, our eyes met. Whatever we have, ISA, is stronger than a curse or magic. Even in werewolf form, there was no way I could hurt you, and I know you wouldn't harm me either. At least not if you had a choice. I tell him about summoning my magic right before Melchior struck. It was stronger than it's ever been. Typically, Fae don't experience love. Werewolves either. But I think these feelings have bound us, fortified us. I sensed this during the battle but couldn't put it into words until now. It's almost like I've come of age and into my power even though I didn't follow through with initiation. Maybe it's love. Alden's lips drop to mine and he kisses me softly, sweetly. My eyes flutter closed, and I am certain this is true love. There's nothing else it could be. His hands grip the nape of my neck, drawing me closer. I curl into him. The wild longings that made me different than the other Fae are finally fulfilled by his love and his lips. His rough fingers explore my smooth skin. I breathe in his wood and mint scent, which now has a wolfy note. He pauses against my lips, then kisses my cheek, my jawbone, and behind my ear, sending tingles through me. I grip the sides of his face, drawing him back to my lips, eager for the source of all this excitement. Eager for more of him. When we part, I exhale, letting out a long breath. What next? His face shines brightly under the moonlight and he takes my hand. When I was talking to some of the other shifters, I was told there's a ritual to bind our magic, uniting our fates. It's forbidden that we be together, I say, repeating what we both know. But I am familiar with the ritual. They taught us it's grim magic, but there's nothing dark or bad about the way I feel. I smile. We'd have to make a promise. To each other. If we do, nothing can tear us apart, I say, recalling the ritual we were told never to perform. He's quiet long enough for me to come up with an answer to what I know he'll ask next. Is that what you want? My voice is as soft as the waves lapping against the boat. I want you, ISA. That's all that matters. I nod, nuzzling into him. I've never felt so free, even amidst this uncertainty. He takes my hands. If we make this promise, that means you'll be sacrificing ever returning to your sisters. It is no longer a sacrifice, but a matter of survival. I'm sure this is what I want. Intention flows through me. A life with me means you'll be sacrificing your safety. The Fae will hunt us to the ends of the realm. But they won't be able to hurt us. Not with this seal, as you called it. They can try. But they will fail. Hope floats in my chest. I nod. Then let's do it. I never want to go back and serve the king, kill huntsmen, and trick humans. I want to pledge my life to you, Isa. I will also find a way to break the curse of being a werewolf. I shake my head. You'll always be a shifter, but I might be able to break the bonds of the bite, forcing you to feed on the full moon. I tell Alden about the ingredients I'll need and the magic required. You're my new favorite Fae, he whispers as he nears my lips. My only Fae. My Isa. And in the human tradition, I want to marry you. Will you take me as your husband? I promise to honor you forever. The human marriage rituals intrigue me. I will. Alden's smile is broad and limitless. He kisses me again, and if I wasn't on a boat, I'd have floated away. Chapter 13. The next morning, activity on the ship's deck wakes us at dawn. We fell asleep among the ropes and other unfamiliar seafaring materials. Rubbing the sleep and salt from my eyes, from above, someone shouts, "Land ho!" We stay out of the way until the boat docks. Alden thanks the captain and we hurry into the bustling port city. He seems perfectly at home, but the sounds, sights, and smells, which are about as pleasant as swamp water, overwhelm me. I pull my red hood tight, feeling vulnerable among so many humans. But there's nothing about me other than my luminescent skin, shining hair, and graceful manner that would suggest that I'm different. Strangely, I almost feel like I fit in here more than I did among the Fae. Perhaps it's because the humans come in all shapes and sizes. Some are reserved and others crude. Some round and others thin. Some stout and others, like Alden, tall and strong. They're all different, and so am I. He holds my hand tightly as he points out a tower and a palace, telling me about the queen. I snort. Melchior wanted to make me queen. Alden stops on the sidewalk and sweeps me into his arms, nearly lifting me off my feet. You're my queen. Now, let's make it official. We walk to a large building with marble steps and stately pillars. Alden pulls me into an alcove. You know how you magic those coins for the crew? Can you do the same with a document that looks like this? He pulls a piece of paper from his pocket that identifies him as Alden Johansson. It's so we can get married. But your information will need to be different. It's proof we are who we say we are. I have no idea who I am other than filled with unexpected joy. I glamour a random piece of paper I find next to a waste bin. Upon Alden's suggestion, I add writing to indicate my name is Isa Smith along with my date of birth and where I was born. Soon, we're in a line to go before an official to get married. Alden doesn't let go of my hand. The next minutes are a blur as we pledge to be true to each other. I would have done so even without the stamped document the official gives us, declaring I am now Mrs. Johansson. As we exit the room, Alden sweeps me into his arms, dipping me back and kissing me again. I give a little shriek and giggle. A few others in the office cheer, congratulating us. Now we can travel without lying, Alden says as we step outside. We are legally married. A cool breeze lifts the hair on the back of my neck. Could the Fae have found their way across the sea already? I swallow thickly. We should perform the ritual as soon as possible. First, I was thinking we could go out to eat, have a feast, raise a pint, and eat some cake. That sounds wonderful, but Alden glances around at the bustle of passers-by. Given the Fae ability to glamour, they could be anywhere. Yes, that's probably a good idea. We take a train deep into the countryside and wind up in what Alden calls the Lake District. Since I shifted and lost my clothing, also leaving all my belongings behind in Concordia, I don't have any coin. We'll have to continue to pass off the kind you make until I can get a job. I have no idea what shape our future will take or if the ritual will even keep us safe, but I will do anything to make this day last for as long as possible. When I do, Alden goes on, I'll get you a proper wedding ring too. He kisses the fourth finger on my hand, then smiles. We have so much to learn about each other. As the train chugs through the countryside, we talk about married life. I feel myself moving toward relief, toward a bright future, but I also can't help but feel like the target is still on my back even though I've taken off my cloak. We reach a quaint village and spend the night at an inn. When the moon, slightly less full than before, rises in the sky, we sneak out to the lake to perform the ritual, sealing our fates together as mates. The waves lap softly and the night sky reflects in the water. What do we do? Alden asks. Like when we first met, we press our palms together. I close my eyes, letting the warmth of my magic and of Alden's love fill me. Feel my energy. Connect with it. With me. When I blink open, Alden's eyes match the sky, bright like glittering stars reflecting in the water. His breath hitches. You're beautiful, he says. My chest rises and falls. I haven't told him what I'll be giving up in order to do this. But that's okay. It will mean we can be together forever. First you must promise that you'll never reveal my origins, I say. I promise, he answers. Next, we have to promise to always be true to each other. I will always be true to you, I promise. I repeat the words. My smile is boundless. And whatever happens, you won't let me go, not back to the Fae or anywhere else. I twine my fingers in his. He returns my grip. I won't let you go. Then we must recite these words at the same time, it is you and me, wolf and Fae, together. No magic this bond can ever sever. I pledge my love to you now and forever. Alden and I repeat the incantation as my breath falters upon my last words spoken. My body vibrates like the electricity in the air before a storm. My heart ticks once, twice, 3 times, and then I feel my voice leave me like a song on the wind. Chapter 14. Alden wraps his arms tightly around me, scooping me off the ground and then spinning us. The world looks the same as it ever did, but I feel different. I'm quieter inside and out. Even though I haven't tested my voice yet, I know it's gone. Holding my upper arms, my husband and my mate takes a long look, starting with my eyes, moving to my lips, taking in the whole of me. I'm going to make you the happiest woman in the world. I promise. I beam a smile, because he already has. He leans in. I admire his angular jaw, the smooth line of his nose, and the way his eyes sparkle. My senses are heightened more than ever, which says a lot because Fae have acute sight, hearing, and smell to begin with. Alden's full lips part slightly and then the corners tip upward. He kisses me softly this time. The world goes fuzzy, and I lose sense of time and place and purpose. Nothing matters other than the love we share. I kiss him back. We become one with a give and a take. An inhale and exhale. Fingers pressed gently and then firmly, exploring, touching, caressing. It's a dance between us, and I look forward to doing it every day for the rest of my existence. But first, I have to break the werewolf curse. And make sure we're safe from the Fae. And reveal that I can't speak. I draw back. Alden's eyes break over me, and then his brows bunch together with concern. Is everything okay? I bite my lower lip and tilt my head from side to side. It's now or never. I move my lips, but no sound comes out. During the ritual, I gave something up. The furrow on Alden's brow deepens. I didn't hear you. I nod, knowing my smile is both happy and sad. Magic always comes with a price. It's an exchange of energy. But I gained you. I smooth my hand down his chest. Wait. Slow down. I don't understand, Alden says. I do my best to speak slowly so he can read my lips and gesture to express what I mean. Sadness flickers across his features. It's okay. I'm still me, and I still love you. That hasn't changed. He swallows and starts pacing. Why didn't you tell me this would happen? Would it have changed your mind about going through with the ritual? Alden scrubs his hand down his face. I don't know. No. But I didn't want you to sacrifice something so important just for me. You mean for us. His frown disappears and he smiles, taking a deep breath. Cupping my jaw, he gazes intently into my eyes. Isa Johansson. I will do anything for you. I promise to be yours always. This doesn't change that. I'm sorry I got upset. He kisses my forehead and then pulls me close. We stay at the inn for a few more days, planning our next move. The afternoon before we're scheduled to leave for a seaside town in the south of England where I expect to find some of the necessary ingredients to break the werewolf curse, Alden comes back from the village with a parcel wrapped in paper and tied with string. I have a gift for you. He smiles. I unwrap it to find a leather-bound diary with blank pages. I leap from my chair by the window where I was watching people on the lake and hug him tight. It's perfect, I mouth, flipping the pages. You can write down whatever you want, or if I'm having a hard time understanding you, you can explain on these pages. While I don't foresee that as a problem since he's surprisingly skilled at reading my lips and we've already worked out a system of gestures and symbols, I appreciate the gift. I plan on writing down everything about this life we now share. That night, unable to sleep, I pen my first entry. It's the story Melchior told on the night of initiation. A story I'm beginning to count among what Alden calls tall tales, or more accurately in this case, a manipulation. Long ago, a human captured a fae named Lila. They say, enchanted by her beauty with dark hair and fair skin, the night sky rippling in her eyes, and the melodic sound of her voice, he took her from her family in the forest against her will. If a fae mates with a human, she loses her voice, rendering her unable to defend or explain herself. My gaze drifts to the street below the window of the inn where we're staying, and then to the lake and the woods beyond. I turn in the chair and glance at Alden, peacefully sleeping. My love for him swells, and I return to my diary entry. When her fae sisters discovered Lila was gone, they sang a long and sorrowful lament. When the king learned about the travesty, he vowed to have vengeance against human men, instructing the fae maidens to sing their lament in the light of the full moon, calling it the cry of the fae and making it so the sound would rob woodsmen of their lives as they lean in for a kiss so desired and so deadly. As I write, the hair on the back of my neck lifts, and I inhale, realizing I was holding my breath. I came so close to the initiation. If it weren't for Alden being bitten, I'd have taken his life. My heart aches at the thought. It's then I wonder if Lila was like me, with wanderer's feet, a curious mind, and a will as tough as iron. As I write the story we were told by the Fae King, I realize she wouldn't have been able to form the bond with the human against her will. During the ritual, I had to make the choice to give up my voice in order to bond with Alden. I had to speak the words, sealing us together. Lila would have had to do the same. This begs the question. Has Melchior been lying? Chapter 15. In the following weeks, Alden and I travel all over the English countryside, visiting small towns and cities, eating sweets like pastries and puddings, watching rugby and horse riding. The humans are as strange as they are enchanting, but it's nothing to the nastiness I knew as Fae, the unseelie like their pranks and trickery, torture and cruelty. As we close in on the next full moon, I think of my sisters, and all those who will undergo the initiation in the next 100 years. I consider returning home and putting a stop to the violence, but how? I cannot speak. I wonder who Melchior selected as his consort. I imagine it was Visalia. As her image comes to mind, fighting me and hating me, I suddenly feel the sadness she must carry at having lost her twin all those years ago. Tears spring to my eyes for her and for Jana. I miss my sisters terribly but couldn't continue the monthly cycle of killing innocent woodsmen. I have no doubt Melchior intended Alden to be my victim. Little did he know a werewolf had bitten him. That misfortune saved us both. Next, we travel to a rural part of England. In case my tincture to break the night hell curse doesn't work, I will have to contain Alden, and it's best to do it as far from human settlements as possible. Strangely, since marrying him and forming our seal, it's felt like something is changing inside of me. Even without my voice, I feel like I'm growing in strength and power. I'm drawn to my cloak, wanting to curl up into it and rest. Or better yet, in Alden's arms. I sense my magic is more potent than ever, even without the initiation. I shake my head, certain now that Melchior tricked us. Such a Fae thing to do. I should have known. Or perhaps I did. Deep down. I didn't need to sing the cry of the Fae to come of age and move from maidenhood on to become a lady of the court. As the moon fills in white and bright, I create the tincture for Alden, letting it bathe in the moonlight as I did in the pool at the end of the stream in my previous life as a Fae. Is it almost ready? Alden asks, coming from chopping wood. I nod and point at the green paste. It looks, he wrinkles his nose. Disgusting enough to work, I mouth. He laughs and kisses me on the cheek. We sit down for dinner, which I've become accustomed to cooking for the two of us, but baking is my favorite. I'm still using glamour to create coins, but when we figure out where to settle down in our own home, Alden will get a job and I might take on work of my own, maybe even as a baker, even though it's not entirely customary for women to be employed. What are you thinking about? Alden asks. I give him an abbreviated version of my thoughts. I've been thinking about where to go. Now that you've been all over the country, do you prefer the countryside or seaside? The forest. He chuckles. Of course you do. We'll be going there tomorrow night. He grips the back of his neck. You know, it's almost like I can sense the change coming. My skin feels tighter and I'm restless in my bones. I'm not a shifter and I have to admit that I feel the same. Do you think it's because we're unsettled, always looking over our shoulders, and not quite belonging anywhere because we don't want to risk being discovered? I nod in understanding. Once you break the curse, that's it, we're settling down. We'll have a proper home. Sound good? As long as I can make more of these biscuits with cream. I wink. You sure love sweets, and I love you. Oh, I almost forgot, the woman at the market gave me a basket of cloudberries. She said you'd like them. They're on the woodpile outside. I forgot to bring them in. My eyes widen. Thank you. I jump up from my seat and hurry outside. It's dusk and the air has cooled without the sun in the sky. A breeze ruffles my hair, carrying with it a sound I haven't heard in a month. Fae song echoes through the woods. My stomach churns. My hands shake, and I drop the basket of berries, sending them scattering. I hurry inside, grab the tincture, Alden's arm, and flee from the house. What's going on? He asks. They're coming, I mouth. I hardly need to say more. He knows who I mean. We hurry from the village and toward the woods as the sky darkens. With the full moon, I don't dare risk Alden around humans. The original plan was to eat dinner, give him the tincture, and spend the night in the woods. Now there's the added element of watching for the Fae. No doubt Jana found me. How'd they get across the sea? If Melchior tricked us all into believing a human had abducted a sister Fae, especially when we're far more powerful with our magic, I have no doubt that he has the capacity to find me. Before it gets too dark, I give Alden the tincture. He winces as he consumes it. Pretend it's your favorite kind of pie. His lips turn down and he rubs his stomach. Please don't be sick. You have to keep it down. Alden leans against a tree, bracing himself. I rub his back. I've never made the tincture and never seen the results when a werewolf takes it, but I gathered it wouldn't be easy for him. Then again, shifting on the full moon with the night hell curse, rather than any time like a regular shifter, is a grueling process. This has to work. Alden starts to shake and drops to the ground. I remain by him. In the dim light of the moon filtering through the trees, he almost looks as green as the tincture. I'm sorry. He shakes his head and then drops to all fours. No, it's not working. Unable to speak and remind him of the love we share and not to hurt me when he changes, I prepare my magic. The minutes stretch long as Alden writhes in agony. But it's not as bad as when he was first bitten. I grip his hand, afraid to let go. Mercifully, he doesn't shift, but the Fae song gets louder, closer. Only, it's a male voice singing. We need to move, but under the influence of the tincture, he's in an in-between state as his body purges the curse. Since he hasn't shifted into a werewolf yet, I sense it's under control. But my nerves are not. Fae can see well in the darkness, but Alden cannot read my lips in the low light. I want to tell him it's going to be okay. The worst of it is over, but as the Fae song gets louder, I'm not so sure. I take his hand in mine, squeeze, and hurry toward the edge of the woods. When we reach the forest boundary, Alden suddenly stops and stiffens. I worry the curse returned, surged, and he's about to shift. Melchior stands in our path and he is alone. There she is. Come here, Fae Queen, he commands. I shake my head. Leave us alone, Alden says, but his voice is weak from the tincture. His eyes come into focus, and I'm confident he no longer bears the curse. However, he's still a shifter. ISA, it's just you and me now, Melchior says. My stomach drops. Where are my sisters? His eyebrow pitches sharply when he sees that I cannot speak. Fury rolls over his brow and clouds form in the sky, matching the ones appearing in his eyes. Alden speaks for me. What did you do to her sisters? Jana proved useful, however, they're all now at the bottom of the sea. Funny, fate don't like salt or iron like the ships that float in the ocean. Words explode in my mind, but it's nothing at the rage I feel coursing through my veins. My magic froths within. Melchior wags his finger. I didn't come here to do battle, ISA. I want to offer a parley. He turns to Alden. Give me what is mine and I shall spare you my wrath. ISA is not property to be bartered, Alden says. But these lands are, and I happen to know a wolf pack who'd be all too pleased to drive you away from here. Alden snarls. We can do this the easy way. Surrender. Or the hard way. War, Melchior says. My nostrils flare, but I resist casting the first spell. Leave us alone, Alden says. A smile simpers on the Fae King's lips and he turns to me. ISA, if you take his life by the next full moon, bring his body to me, and pledge your service to your king, I'll grant you pardon and restore your voice. I cock my head and ask, and if not? If not, I will end you both, Melchior replies. So either way, I die? Alden chuckles. I don't think so, ferryman. ISA and I are happily married. We have our future together and you and your silly threats won't stop us. I admire my husband's bravery, but he doesn't know the Fae King's power, prowess, and determination. Melchior quivers and then seems to grow in stature as though he's summoning his power or resisting using it despite his desire to do so. If it's true and we are on Pack lands, he won't use his magic because that would start a war. Then again, that sounds like what he wants. I take Alden by the hand. We have to get out of here. Sparks sail from Melchior's scepter. I counterblast, feeling the energy of my magic move through me like a wave. If he wants war, I'll fight. That must be the power, prowess, and determination of the Fae in me. In one swift motion, Alden shifts. Like before, I mount his back as we outrace the Fae King. He dodges blasts of magic from Melchior's scepter. But I know this is far from over. My wolf doesn't stop running until once more, we reach the sea. He returns to his human form behind a fishing shack. I sense Melchior in the vicinity, preparing to strike. He must have used Janna to find me and then sunk the ship. Sadness fills my eyes, but my fury is stronger. Alden buys us passage, while I wait, at the ready, should the Fae King show his face. When my mate returns, the tickets he purchased say that our destination is Concordia. I shake my head. We can't go back. Melchior threatened war. The pack there welcomed me. They'll help us. Maybe we can make a treaty between the wolves and Fae, Alden suggests. I shift from foot to foot, already uneasy about the Fae King's sudden appearance, threat, and the proximity of so much salt, reminding me of the fate of my Fae sisters. Alden's plan is hopeful, but unlikely. He kisses my forehead and holds my gaze. My love, I promise, I will do everything to protect you. My heart trusts him. I love you, I mouth. He's surveying the ships and didn't read my lips, but takes my hand, and says, I love you, ISA. Always and forever. It's as if he felt my sentiment without my needing to speak. It's like another kind of magic altogether. We find the ship the Alocasia to carry us over the sea and back to my homeland. As soon as I step onto the boat with the unsteady water rocking it like a cradle, I press my hand to my stomach. I don't feel ill. Rather, I feel full. As full as the moon. As darkness fades to dawn, the crew throws the lines, releasing the ship from the dock. The glow of the rising sun shines on Alden, painting him golden. I take his hand and squeeze, afraid to let go, afraid of what the future will bring. When he turns to me, I mouth, I'm pregnant. You're going to be a father. His expression shifts from surprise to delight as he pulls me into his arms, professing his love for me once more. In his embrace, I no longer feel the need to wander. I kiss his lips and then mouth, you are my home and my true love, no matter what happens.